This isn't new. Since COVID, real estate, particularly in the commercial arena, has been under significant pressure. Real estate in the residential arena is a little bit different story because there's still demand for that. But when you look at office space, demand has just cratered for reasons that were totally unexpected. But that doesn't mean commercial building has come to an end. It's still there. It's just in a different area. My name is Don Creech.
And I'm Perry Sykes, and welcome to the Investor Resources Podcast.
So there's great effort post-COVID to get people to come back to work in the office where you could see one another and the boss can see that you're at your desk and you're not goofing off, or if you are, tell you to straighten up your act and get back to work. Well, those days are pretty well over, because even with the efforts to force people back to work, they didn't work very well. In fact, it turned out they were a bit of a covert reduction in force. we were talking about this before we started recording.
Yeah, they were trying. That was a really good way management thought, and it was for a while, to let people self-select that I'm going to move on. They're going to force everybody to come back to the office. They're like, well, we need a 10% force reduction. We won't have to lay anybody off if we just say, well, you have to come back to the office, and there's going to be at least that many. They're going to self-select and say, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go find another job where I can continue to work remotely. And the problem became pretty quickly now, way more than they expected, are saying, no, I'm not coming back in. Plus, a lot of the people they wanted to keep were self-selecting, saying, yeah, I'm going to move on. And so it was a little too random, and the numbers got too large too fast for the people that were willing to say, no, I want a remote job. And quite frankly, the data does not bear out what corporations are wanting. You know, they're looking at average time during the day spent working. It actually increases when you have a remote job. You get rid of all of those, the office stuff that happens naturally, the little confabs that break out that aren't really very productive, pointless meeting after pointless meeting, which are really easy to get together if everybody's in the same, well, let's start a meeting. And then it turns out, well, there was really no reason for any of that to happen. So there's a lot of efficiency. And as soon as everyone gets their head wrapped around, we don't need to be in the same room, it doesn't really make any difference. And that's easy to say, and sometimes it's a little harder to internalize, especially for managers who, like you said, Don, we need to manage. We need to point at people and say, don't do it this way, do it that way. And we can't do that if I'm in Cleveland and you're in Minnesota. You know, we need to be in the same room so I can see what you're doing. And that used to be true. Changing so fast.
Well, Jamie Dimon is one that had a really hard time with making that adjustment. In fact, he probably is still suffering from this, because he had a concerted effort last year to get his management team and his traders back in the office. You either come back in or you're going to get fired. That's pretty clear cut. The issue was, if you're not here in the office, we can't develop corporate culture.
Correct.
Well, when you stop to think about it, J.P. Morgan didn't have a single office in New York City. It had offices all around the world who were not all getting together to maintain corporate culture. They were already working remotely, and it just apparently hadn't occurred to him that he already had the network in place. Right. And so the pressure to get back into even the Wall Street firms has diminished. People are around the country. I mean, even you and I haven't been together face to face in years. We've been working remotely, doing just what we're doing with this podcast.
Yep.
Now,
long time.
In a couple of weeks, we're going to a conference, and it's going to be the same one in the same city. We'll be able to verify that we still have flesh on our.
We'll see each other in the flesh, but it won't be here. Yeah, it'll be elsewhere.
It won't be here. That's right.
And that was kind of the epiphany at work for so many corporations, when they finally kind of caught up a little bit and figured out that even people sitting in the same room were not working together. You had 10 people in cubicles. They weren't running around face to face. Everything happens online. Everything happens on the network that's built. all the collaboration goes on online. You don't have to stand around and talk to someone. You don't need to run into somebody at the water cooler, as they used to say, and hash things out. There just isn't a need for that. That's the way business used to happen. That's the way they say they used to get more collaborations. And now with all the ways you can be together as much time during the day as you choose, but it's just going to be online. And when that's everyone's first choice, and that's where your people want to work, and that's also where they're very productive, it doesn't make any sense to put the brakes on that and try to reverse it, because it's not the way it used to be.
Well,
it's not going to be.
Software's made that water cooler part of your desktop.
Yeah,
Microsoft
exactly.
has Teams. Other software have different programs for it, but you need to pass. You don't need to pass a Post-it note and go around and stick it in somebody's cubicle wall or on their telephone. It shows up on their computer screen saying you have a message. That was one of the things that happened early on with the advent of the internet. And we were trying to figure out, how does this actually work when you talk to somebody if you don't know what their address is, their handle. We call it the handle now. But now in Teams, working for your company, everybody's got a handle and they know where to find it and they know how the alert pops up. So what's happened here is that the demand for office space, which we've talked about frequently over the past couple of years, has been continuing to collapse. And we have massive office towers that were paid horrendous prices that are now being torn down, that people are buying them for less than the mortgage balance to scrap the building, because the land underneath this 30 or 50-story office building is worth more to do something else than office employees.
Absolutely.
But the money has to go somewhere. And what is in demand comes as a result of working remotely. That's data centers. We didn't really understand what the demand was going to be until ChatGPT just a couple of years ago showed us what can be done with the internet, with artificial intelligence. And we already have the network in place for working remotely, working together collaboratively, remotely. Now we need more capacity. And so we're building out, making commitments to build data processing centers, which I think that the average American kind of knows this is going on. They've heard about it, but they don't understand what's really happening that's going to affect them. It is beginning to show up with higher electrical bills. When these data centers go in next door to your city, they demand more power in some cases than the entire city to which they've become a neighbor.
Correct. And they're coming in anywhere. I mean, and everywhere. The article that I came across about saying, look, the data centers are about to surpass the construction spending on new office space. The data centers are more important than the office buildings. Since 2014, 2,200% growth in data center construction. 2,200%. That is a massive investment. And that's because we were coming from behind when AI began to come online for real, and everybody figured out, okay, this is not just a toy already. This is something we can use every single day if we have enough compute power to make this work, and that's going to require a lot more data centers. Like I said, Don, all of a sudden it became, the reality was, we don't even have enough electricity to run these things. You know, we can find the ground to build them. We need enough power to run them. And they use a lot. So it really is difficult to look forward and say, okay, how much more do we need? And there was a time, I was just reading, there was a time when it didn't matter who you were or how many data centers you were putting in. It was just like, yep, good job. And now people are looking at, okay, we are growing so fast on that front. Do we really need the expansion? And some companies are saying, just because you don't know what we need it for doesn't mean we're not going to need it. And so they're expanding anyway. But companies are beginning to get looked at very tightly for, we're not sure why you're building out as many data centers as you are, we're not seeing the return on investment for that for you right now. And so even already they're looking at it as maybe you're overspending, maybe you're going to have a hard time getting a return on that investment. But there's no slowdown in sight. The companies that are doing it are still saying, well, no, we don't even know why we're going to need it, but we know we're going to need it. And
Well, the question you raised, the issue you raised is part of the reason that some analysts are saying that we are in a bubble because the valuations are so extended.
Yes.
It's incomprehensible. And I don't remember how to pronounce the guy who is in charge of Google, the CEO there.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, okay. He is on record as saying, I don't care. I will bankrupt my company to become the dominant provider. I am going to build these out. Now, it poses some problems. Now, okay, he wants to be the world's leader on AI and data provision. That's corporate capitalism.
Sure.
Can I lead the system? Part of the problem with needing electricity is these data centers need massive amounts of water to cool stuff. So that's going to change. NVIDIA is actually experimenting with a new chip that uses the pathways on the chip, the grooves in the chip, to funnel water to cool the chips to reduce the demand for the external water sources. So the combination of access to power close by and plentiful water close by, that kind of determines which property is going to be the target of the data center build out initially.
Sure. Yep.
And it depends upon which utility companies have the ability to generate that power. Transmission lines are a problem because our transmission system in our country is about 5 decades out of date, maybe older in some places. This is not the kind of money that state governments say, yeah, we'll let you raise utility fees so you can build new transmission lines. Why do you need it now?
Right.
Well, we don't, but the population's going to grow. You want business to grow, right? We're going to be well, let's see when that actually happens. So the utilities don't get a rate increase. They don't have the money to spend on this stuff. They now do. They're getting rate increases, but the companies that are going to use this excess power aren't demanding it yet. They are still building out. So the rate increases go to households and local businesses who are suddenly coming to realize, hey, we got this new data center and it's going to bring some new employment. That's good. And eventually some new taxes. But right now I'm funding this. This is no fun. I think California's utility bill is up 63% for the average household.
That'll get your attention.
Come on, ours isn't that bad here in Washington yet. But my wife says, "Have you seen the utility bill lately?" I said, "No, I don't look at it. You pay it." She said, "Well, let me tell you a story about what's going on here, and particularly if you're on the East Coast, close to Virginia, Washington D.C., where there's a lot of build out going on. The power bill is a major topic of concern, and it is not going to go away. This is going to continue expanding, and it is what supports the expansion of artificial intelligence within our economy, within the stock market itself. And for another session, we can't get into this, but actually the fears of extended overvaluation in the market, particularly because of the concentration of the Mag 7 and mega cap growth stocks, is not a reasoned argument. The PEs are actually lower than they used to be because earnings now justify what these companies are doing and how they're going to be able to pay for the development of this prospect.
And that's the key. It's earnings. It's real earnings. These are real companies doing real business, and they're expanding at this breakneck speed because they can see the demand. The demand is there now, and the demand is going to continue to grow. So this is not like the dot-com bubble where, well, this is going to be great because, well, somebody said it was going to be great. These are companies that are already just flush with cash and flush with revenue from being able to sell everything they can produce and still falling far short. So they know the demand's there, and there's going to be some explosive growth, and everyone's trying to get their piece of it. And like I said, Don, that's capitalism 101. That's the way things should work.
If you like what you've heard today, share this with some of your friends, colleagues. Subscribe. There's a link right down here on the screen. You can punch that button to subscribe. If you want to talk to us about your portfolio, you got questions on what you own and whether or not your asset is overvalued, well, we've got data research and stuff that we access, and we could give you some help on that. It's a free consult. Just give us a call or send us an email. But subscribe. Stay tuned. We have more to go. We did not get it all covered today. Have a great day.